twins, by the way.
What'd you say?
We're twins. Black
Ooh,
gold necklace.
yes. I love it. And little plants in the background and everything. Perfect. How have you been?
Good. I was watching your FreeFall last week, and I was laughing because I remember that first apartment that you had. I don't remember it being cold, but I remember it like feeling kind of like a hostel. Like,
Yes. Yes, I feel like because I remember when we Chris visited and we were outside somewhere, so it must have been we were hanging out while it was still warm, but it took a turn. Yes.
it's like, oh,
Um,
I not thought about that memory in a really long time, but like, yeah, that seems right.
yes. If you have not been to a free fall or free fall Friday before, basically this is where I interview people who have done things in a way that I feel is different than the way society sets us up for life and shows some level of courage and adventure or just, yeah, like swimming upstream. So today we are meeting with Katie, which this is fun for me because Katie and I have actually not seen each other in person in many a years. And we, like I said, we did hang out in New York years ago. And it was funny because I'm reading your story about food and everything. And you introduced me to some of my favorite New York food
Oh,
experiences. But we have followed each other on Instagram, and I think we feel like we've kept up with each other's life in that way, but this is our first time talking in a long
yeah.
time. Yeah. And so Katie's going to be sharing her story of leaving her stable job and moving to Paris to study at Le Cordon Bleu and become a pastry chef. So
I
that's
like
what you're into.
really French that up, and I
I'm
like
working on it.
it.
I read in your story too that you didn't know French when you went there, so I felt better too because I was like, I probably should have learned something before I moved here.
Yeah.
But
Like, oh, it's minor detail.
right, exactly. So just start us off and share with us what was going on in your life before you took this free fall, and like to what extent were you engaging with or not engaging with your passion?
Yeah. So at the time I decided to do this, I was working at a wealth management technology provider, which is basically just like a company that provides software that asset management firms and financial advisors use to like run their business and manage accounts and trade accounts and stuff like that. I'd been there for like 14 years. It kind of like that job I kind of got like on a whim. I was temping in Chicago and then ended up getting hired there, and then it was like I blinked and it was like 14 years later and I had done a bunch of different roles. I don't know, probably five or six different jobs like while I was there. And at the time that I left, I was working as like a solutions strategist, so like helping our sales team explain like how our products could help to prospective and existing clients, and traveling like 2 to 3 times a month at least. Basically like cooking and baking in all of my free time. Like I would just kind of, anytime I was home, I was wanting to try like a new recipe and, figure out things in the kitchen.
Yeah. I remember we went to some events with, I can't remember her name now, but you made this like chocolate thing. I didn't know that this was like your thing at the time. I just thought like, oh, okay, potluck, like people ring things. But it was like this chocolate cake that was perfectly glazed and it looked like, I don't know. It looked like something straight out of a magazine, basically. But I still think I think maybe it like comes up on my Facebook feed sometimes or whatever, but I still think about it. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. I've always like baked, like I grew up baking and making different things. And like, I remember making like an anniversary cake for my parents when I was like, I don't know, 10 or something like that. And, like making croissants and making bread and stuff like well before a quarantine gave people
Right.
it was just always kind of like what I thought was like a fun hobby and things like that.
Did you ever think that it was something you would want to pursue full time?
I had thought about going to culinary school, like when I was in junior high, and like for most of high school, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the CIA in Hudson Valley or Johnson and Wales. And was really interested in that. I would talk about it like with my mom all the time. And my mom had cancer when I was, I don't know, she was diagnosed when I was like in 8th grade, and she ended up passing away when I was a senior in high school. And it just became kind of one of those things where like, I just couldn't do it at the time. You know what I mean? It was just like, I just needed to kind of get through life and like survive, and like that kind of
Yeah.
the wayside. So it was just like, no, I need to go to like, I need to do what people are doing. I'm not going to rock the boat. I just need to get through. So I went to, you know, just a traditional like 4-year college. And I mean, I don't regret that decision at all, but it just was like something that like, it was like a pretty big thing in my life when I was much younger. And then I was like, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Was it something that, so then when you were in your 14 years at this job, was it something that kept surfacing of you maybe thinking about doing this, or did the idea to go to Paris just kind of come recently?
I don't think there was any like particular like moment where I was like, that's it, I'm going to Paris. It just kind of was like, you know, becoming more and more of like something that I was like really wanting to do like all the time. And I had a series of like not great bosses, like not very supportive and stuff like that. And in my last role, I think Jody maybe was joining. So hello, Jody, if you're there. But my last boss there, Jody, she was just so empowering and like supportive. And I think it actually like translated into giving me confidence like outside of work. Like even though she was like, you know, helping me get confidence in the role that I was doing at work, like it transferred over. And I don't really realize that like not having that type of like manager, maybe unknowingly I kind of thought along the way like, well, I can't do anything else. Like, you know, I don't know, like everyone's doubting me, like that made me doubt myself. So it wasn't until like someone kind of wasn't doubting me and was like, no, like, you know what you're talking about. You can do this, you got this, that I was like, oh, like maybe I can. And
Yeah.
And had those thoughts like outside of work. So like I felt like fine, but I just wasn't like super happy. I wasn't like super content. And anytime I thought about like, well, how could I change that maybe? It kept going back to like food type, baking type of jobs and things like that. So I was like, huh, maybe there's like something to this, like, and I just kind of decided like I didn't want to just like quit and like go work at a restaurant, that I wanted to like go to culinary school. And just started looking into it and was like, oh, like maybe I could do this. And it was really kind of on a whim, like, that I was like, well, like maybe I could go to Paris and
Right. And I just want to stamp too that, because it seems super obvious, but I also think that sometimes people gloss over it. But when I worked with a career coach a few years ago, he pointed out that like whatever is that thing that keeps nagging, you know, in the back of your mind over and over, it's actually not going to go away. So you should listen to it. And so it sounds to me like this was something that, like you said, whenever you felt like, I don't know if I feel really fulfilled, what would fulfill me? Something related to food, something related to, you know, maybe baking or whatnot. And I don't know, I just point that out as something to pay attention to, because I think that we might think of those things and then we just keep dismissing it, like, oh, but I could never do anything with that, or oh, I can't make money from that, or oh, you know, like that's silly, or etc. And it's like, no, maybe take some time, journal, like just listen. What'd you say?
Like I felt like all my friends were like, yeah, duh, of course that's what you should do. Like it like made sense to everybody, but like to me it was like not, it was not a fully formed like, yeah, this could happen type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it always kind of been there, I guess.
Share with me what, like, when you did decide or like make this decision, and what were the steps of preparation that you took in order to feel like you could actually go for it and do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main kind of decision part of it was just kind of financial aspects. I didn't want to do something where I was going to go into debt. Like I felt like I had just paid off like my student loans already. And I was like, I don't want to go into debt. I had like several years ago, like my company had this employee stock purchase plan program, and I had started investing in that, like a portion of my paycheck every 2 weeks and stuff went to that. And it was just kind of sitting there. And there was a time where I thought like, oh, I'm going to make, I'm going to get an apartment in New York City someday. That's what I'm going to use that money for. And then like, it's just like not realistic. Like
then you remembered you lived in New York City.
Insane. The only way that this can happen is if like I meet a guy who also has been putting away money for a down payment on an apartment, and I'm just like willing to like invest in this like hypothetical other person, right? Mm-hmm. Really was like, no, I'm gonna invest in myself. Yes. Like I'm gonna bet on me, and this is what I want to like, what portion of money I want to use from that, and like where can I make this work? And I just kind of did a lot of like, I'm a pen and paper type of person, like all the time. So it was just like looking up different, cost of living estimations for Paris, and like factoring in tuition and how much is a storage unit going to cost? Because I knew I was not going to like keep my apartment in New York during that time. And I knew that I still wanted to like take advantage of being in Europe and going places and, hopping on the train on a weekend off and like going up to Normandy or something like that. So like I knew I wanted, some money to have fun with, and some money for school, and some money for rent. And so I kind of like made like a faux monthly budget and was like, all right, well, like I could comfortably do this for, 8-9 months. And then not be like totally broke coming back. Like
right.
Coming back too. So that was like the big thing, was just like figuring out like what kind of budget I felt comfortable with. And yeah, doing the whole visa process was definitely something that was kind of new and different. And, working with the French government like doesn't kind of make sense all the time. It's very different than kind of the American way of thinking for a lot of stuff. So like that was kind of the most like anxiety producing aspect of the whole like planning process, was just like figuring out, okay, well, this is when I need to apply for this, and everything's kind of backdated. Like you can't apply more than X number of weeks before you're actually going to be there. But the process takes like the majority of that. So then if you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going, like, I don't know. What do I
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of planning for that aspect of it.
So although it sounds like you had a lot of plans in place, and you got pen to paper and figured out like finances and probably living arrangements and all of those things, were there any things that you were afraid of in stepping into this free fall?
I mean, we kind of talked about how like I didn't speak French, and I feel like when I started telling people that I was going, I was less scared about it than I probably should have been. Like other people were a lot more worried for me, but I wasn't. But I probably should have been, just because like tourist French phrases don't really like, I don't know. It's hard to like kind of bond with your grocery store like checkout person when you're like, I only know the like that you're asking me if I need a bag, and do I want my receipt, and if like I would love to chat, but it's like kind of fun little interactions, like like not form like as tight of a relationship with like the bodega guy like I do like with the guy that's here like around.
Yeah, definitely.
But like I the type of person where like once I make a decision, I'm not necessarily like scared about it. It's just kind of like, okay, it's done. I'm not gonna really be swayed by other people's kind of opinions. I was more a little disappointed that I felt like there was a time period where everybody was like, you're gonna meet a man and you're gonna get married and you're gonna stay in Paris and you're never gonna come back. And I was like, that's actually not why I'm going. I feel like women can choose to do things without it being like, well, I'm gonna do this so that I can meet a man, or that if I didn't come back with a French boyfriend, my time in Paris would be like a failure. And like, no, I'm going to learn and become a pastry chef. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, whether it's about meeting a man or anything. It's something that I've had to catch myself on too, that now, like, having been in the space of trying to do things that are a little bit scary, or do things that's not the norm or whatever, that even when you're not the person taking the free fall, you just being in community with people who are doing that, like, your words are so important and your reactions are so important. And I've learned that just in how people have reacted to me, and I've tried to be better about that. But if someone's doing something and they're already nervous about it, already scared about it, and then you layer on these hyped expectations, that's not helpful. You know. And so it's really
not some hypothetical French dude. Like, it's like we're not talking about him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not excited for him.
I think it's so important to basically kind of just like feel out the tone of the person who's sharing what they're sharing, and try to like be with them where they are, and
Right.
you know, like, match their energy and match their excitement, and just like be walking side by side and supporting them, and say like, oh my gosh, like, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do this and I can't wait to, you know, etc. It's like it is something that is you're doing it out of encouraging, and like it's coming from a supportive place. But I have learned that I have to be really careful with my words, because they're really powerful when someone's in a vulnerable space trying to figure out like their next step or something kind of scary.
I felt like I would get so like riled up about it, because I'd be like, if I was a man, nobody would be like, oh my god, you're gonna move to Paris for 6 months to study at Le Cordon Bleu and you're gonna meet a wife.
It's
like,
so true.
no one would say that to a guy.
Yeah, that is really true. I love
Anyway,
that.
my little rant, but yeah, but I think there was a lot of fear about like coming back too.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was just like, I don't know, I haven't like interviewed for jobs in a while. I don't know what the industry is looking for. Are they going to want to hire a 38-year-old career change, you know, person? You know, what is that going to look like? How am I going to find an apartment again in New York City? Like, all those kind of things, where it's like, going to Paris, I was like able to map out like what that was going to look like. But then like coming back to New York, not as easy to map out. And so like that's what makes things a little bit more, you know, scary to me.
Yeah. So share with me, what'd you say?
But worth it.
Of course. So exactly. So share with me, kind of leading into that two-part question. Talk to me a little bit about actually being in Paris and Le Cordon Bleu, and what that experience was like for you. And then kind of wrapping that with like, what were the overall benefits of that experience for you?
Yeah, I really loved my time there. Like I did the intensive pastry program. So the normal program is broken into 3 sections of each 3 months. And just because like I wanted that kind of financial, you know, pillow to land on when I got back, I decided to do the intensive, which they kind of condense the 2 of the 3-month programs into just 1 3-month thing.
Okay.
So in total, it's a 6-month program, and it was really intense. Like, we were there from like 8 to 10, you know, 6 days a week, and there were times where it was like so much fun, and times where it was just really stressful, especially just from being just kind of exhausted, like taking in all this information. But it was great. It felt so fulfilling. Like, no matter how tired I was always like, this is amazing, and just so happy to be there. And I think, you know, if I would have gone through that process at like 23, I don't know that I would have kind of gotten out of as much of it, like, as I
Why do you say that?
I think I was just like in a place in my life where I was able to kind of really be, number one, like, proud of myself for being able to, you know, kind of financially get there myself, you know, not having to borrow money, like doing, like, paying my own way to do that.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, wow, like, these are really amazing chefs, and we're here to learn and like take, you know, kind of pull everything good from this opportunity. I made some really great friends that I'm still in contact with, like, all over the world.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of great. And I think if I would have gone being younger, I just wouldn't have enjoyed it as much, and been maybe more focused on, like, I don't know, a competitive aspect maybe, or like, you know, there's a lot of people who are like really intense.
Yeah.
Cool. So like I could see myself like going that way when I was younger. So, you know, it ended up kind of, you know, timelines always work out in weird, mysterious ways, but
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've actually no one's brought that up before, and I think that's a really interesting point to sit on, is just thinking about, because obviously when people take free falls, a lot of times age plays a factor. They're like, oh, but I'm almost 40 years old and I'm doing this crazy thing that, whatever. But there are some benefits to doing things when you like feel a little bit more grounded and rooted in who you are. And it sounds like to you, you weren't going for the wrong reasons, or you wouldn't have been chasing after like, things for competitive reasons or whatnot. You would have been going just because like, I actually just really am passionate about this and I'm soaking up all of this new
Yeah. And
information, and that's bringing
it was
me life.
definitely a new experience to be kind of like the oldest person around. Like when I had started in my last company, like I was the young person. And even when I left, I was still like on the younger side um, of things. And here it was like, there was actually a woman who was 72 years old in our program. And then the next oldest person was me. So it's like, all right. Like, I mean, that's just like never really happened before. So it was just
Yeah.
like, I was like in such a different, kind of role reversal than what I was used to. And I kind of enjoyed it. I liked
That's
it.
really interesting. I love that. I do want to just throw in here too, just talking about your experience. So I was watching, yes, yes, you can rewatch these later. I'm going to post them to my account. So follow me. Yes, I was watching your pictures on Instagram. So what was interesting was I went to Paris for a month and left, and you got to Paris. I think it was like a month later. It was not that different in time. And so I'm sad that I missed you, but I was watching your pictures, and it seemed like every single day you posted a new pastry or product that you created, which I couldn't understand how you were learning that quickly. But having just come from Paris, I seriously would look at them and like, these are the things that were in the beautiful bakery shops that I passed every single day. Like, how did you learn that so quickly? I was
Yeah.
very impressed.
Yeah, we had like food theory classes about different things, like about hygiene and bacteria, but also about like ice cream or about dairy products, about chocolate, things like that. But then the majority of the time, it was like you would watch a like 3 hour demonstration of a chef like making this and kind of going through and teaching along the way, and then we'd get maybe like an hour break maybe, and then go in to the practical room or the kitchen essentially,
Yeah.
and make it. And yeah, we made something like every day. There were a few times where it was like twice a day. I would go up to strangers and like offer them in like broken French English, offer them food. It got really hard. Like once we started making like full cakes, like it was a lot easier when we were doing like individual, like croissants or like cookies or
Yeah.
biscuits and things like that. Was a lot easier to just pass out on my way home from the train. But then it was like, no one wants a cake from a stranger. Like, I can't speak.
Not at all.
like, like, no. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it was really great when people would come to visit because I'd be like, oh my God, please eat. Like 3 different.
Yeah, I was just so impressed. It was very high quality, and like I said, looked like it was the actual things that would be in the storefront window. So
I mean,
kudos to you.
part of the reason that I think it also appealed to me was like, I knew that there would be a lot of stuff that we were doing in that program that like maybe I would never do again. Like I'm probably not going to sculpt another animal out of pure chocolate, or I don't really have a desire to work in like a hotel and do like sugar sculptures and continually burn my fingertips off. Um,
Right.
I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I did it there. I'm glad I learned how to do that, and
Yeah, yeah.
that
So
was
yeah, what'd you say?
it was fun once, and I don't need to do it again.
I totally appreciate that. So tell me, what are the things that you are taking away now on the other side of it, and being stateside again? Like, what are the big, takeaways or themes from that stick with you?
I mean, overall, I just think that like I am so much less like bothered and kind of don't really even pay attention to other people's kind of what their barometers or expectations of success might be, or what they kind of expect me to do. I mean, I feel like when you tell people that you have just become a pastry chef, like for some reason, the next thing that people say are like, you're going to be on Food Network. Like, well, no, I'm not. Like, I literally haven't even been like out of school a year. So like, that would be crazy. Like, that people who are there, like this is like, they've had a career.
Right.
And now maybe they're on it. Like, it's like, no one is an overnight success. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so like, I just don't, it's just kind of funny. Like, and I feel like maybe I would have been, I don't know, felt bad about myself or like taken that in more before this. But like now I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah,
Yep.
maybe. Um, but just also just a general kind of sense of just being content and like re-energized about life. Like, I mean, I definitely don't think that kind of like career and work needs to define everybody like 100%, but like I feel like so much more happier in that section of life that like I just feel kind of overall kind of more content.
Yeah.
And I just feel like less of a Chandler Bing in my friend group. Like I just felt like I was always the person that like everybody was like, I don't know what you do. And like since I didn't really have a passion for it, like I never really wanted to talk about it. So it was just always kind of like this mystery of like, what is it that you do? And I'm like, we don't have to talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
Far more excited to talk about it and even would say yes to an Instagram live to talk about it.
Yay. So what is it that you are doing now?
Yeah, so I mean, it COVID has definitely changed things up a lot. Definitely did not factor that into my like plan of how 2019, 2020 was gonna go. But I got back in January and I was hired at a restaurant in downtown Brooklyn, Gage and Tollner,
Oh, yeah.
which was set to have its big like grand reopening on March 15th, which ended up being like the day that the city shut down. So everybody was like, go from there. So that was definitely a new experience. I felt like I had just like started and was like, okay, like I was finally at the point where I was like, maybe I'm not gonna feel like totally overwhelmed today when I go into work. And I was like, everyone's being let go. No. So that happened. I worked at a temporary pop-up in July for Lonnie Holiday, which was really great. And then I just recently got hired at 420 Blackbirds, the pie company that had their production kitchen is in Gowanus. So I've been working there for like almost a month now, I guess, like 3 weeks or so.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so very lucky. I mean, the the food industry here is like, I mean, it's sad and insane. Like I got an email from one of the places that I applied to. It was just kind of like a part-time like bake muffins at a coffee shop job, and they got over 300 applicants for that job. Like,
Wow.
not a 300 applicant type of. So I feel really lucky that like I was able to kind of have these different experiences while this has been going on. And I don't know, I just kind of look forward to kind of learning and getting kitchen experience. Like it's so different making, you know, one thing in your home kitchen versus, you know, I like baked 93 pies or something the other day. So it's like,
Wow.
it was just like, it's just so different. And I just feel like I have a lot to learn, and it's just a time to kind of take it all in and work hard and kind of figure out where I kind of want this career to go. Like I don't really have a clear vision as far as like exactly what I want to do. I have a couple different interests, and
Yeah.
I'm having a good time like figuring it out. Like, oh yeah, like this is cool. I'm gonna get biceps because I'm lifting heavy stuff all day, and like, so yeah, we shall see.
That's
But
exciting. And there's also, tell me about We Dough. Is that, am I saying it right?
so I during you know, this pandemic time, after I got laid off from Gage and Tollner, just some friends and like my neighbors were like, we're, you know, talking, and I was like, oh, I should like, you want some cookie dough? Like I can make it for cookie dough. And it just kind of turned into this little like mini business. So I have an Instagram page, We Dough, OUI dough, like yes in French. It's the only word in French I do know.
I use that a lot in Paris.
Name came from. Um, yeah, and so people, you know, in the Brooklyn area can message me and order. I'll be posting October flavors later today, and yeah, I just kind of walk or city bike on over to people, get them some frozen dough.
That's
It's been
so fun.
fun, and like just I don't know, like learning how to manage that with like now a full-time job has been interesting, and also just that kind of like customer interaction aspect has been really interesting, and communicating like only through Instagram. It's all things to learn.
Yeah. Have you had any customers yet who you don't know, but they
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
I know the first one I was like, oh my God.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this last question, and I'm actually going to read something that you wrote in response to it. But I asked, like, what are guiding principles or inspiration that you lean on to navigate decision making in your own life and to navigate fear and doubt? And you can go on into other directions, but I just wanted to highlight this line. You said, I think it's important to remind myself that 12-year-old version of me would be so stoked for me. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that like growing up, I always like wanted to live in New York. Like wanting to live in New York is why I ended up in Chicago. Actually, it's like I was applying for jobs here, like just out of college, and was getting, offers to like work for free. I was like, well, I don't know how people pay rent. Um, so I was like, all right, well, if I don't have a job in New York, then like I'm gonna move to Chicago on this date, and like kind of made that plan for myself, and ended up moving to Chicago because I was only getting, non-paying job offers. But like I kind of, took a risk and like asked my boss at the time, like, hey, could I work out of our office that's in Jersey City so I can move here? Because like it was just really important to me. Like I just always wanted, to live in New York City and, eat leftover Chinese food out of the container with chopsticks and stuff like that. So like nailing it,
You had a vision.
like, very like movie based, but also like, there's times that you just have to sit back and be like, oh, like I actually did that, and like good for me. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to be really tough on myself and like my own worst critic. So like it's something like to work on.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna order some Chinese food right now. Just
Exactly. Yeah, I just really liked hearing that. Just the idea of like it almost brought up for me that we are only competing with ourselves, and so the fact that your barometer was like looking back at 12-year-old me would be looking at who I am right now and just be like, hey, you're doing it, like you're living a life that like I'd be so excited about. So
like, you have a stoop, oh my gosh.
exactly, yeah, that's like such a cool way of thinking about it. Well, anything else that you'd want to share? And it's no pressure to, but I don't know if there's anything I didn't ask.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm honored that you asked me to participate in your FreeFall series. FreeFall.
Yeah, you were an inspiration to me when I saw you doing that, and so I'm so excited that you were able to come on and share your story. And I will.
Dark too, by the way.
What'd you say?
I didn't really realize I was like sitting in the dark.
So. I didn't realize it honestly until you turned the light. I was like, oh, that's nice. Anyways, well, thank you guys for hanging in there. It sounds like maybe there were some internet issues, but there weren't any on my end. So I think that when I download this and repost it, people can hear the whole thing properly. So cool. All right. Good talking with you. I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.